We good to go, John?
Yes, we should be good.
You don't give me that look of confidence.
I'm looking at our Granicus. I'm making sure that we're on live. It's giving me kind of the icon. It's not showing me a picture yet. But it said it's recording, so I'll take its word.
Okay. Sounds great. Well, I am going to call the meeting to order. Can you take roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Cardenas?
Present.
Commissioner Cooley, excused. Commissioner Douglas?
Here.
Vice Chair Kirkpatrick?
Here?
And Chair Shelf?
Yes,
We have a
thank
quorum.
you. Okay, fantastic. John, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. You stand, put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless you, John, for doing that. I love it.
Thank you.
Okay, can I get a approve order of the agenda?
I'll move. Second. Approve.
Not sure who approved it and who was the second.
I'll approve the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Great. You want to do roll call, or are we good?
There's a motion and a second. We should do roll call.
Okay.
Okay, roll call. Commissioner Cardenas,
Approved.
Commissioner Douglas,
Approve.
Vice Chair Kirkpatrick,
Yes.
Chair Shelf.
Yes, thank you very much. Blue folder items, John, I saw that you sent one out late. Do you want to address it, or?
Yes, we did receive one letter. It's in regards to item 9A, which is zoning case number 2251. The email or letter was received from, in regards to the 4 Poppy Trail development. It's from Mr. Nikos Constant over at 25 George F. Road. And just to summarize, he does live on George F. There are 4 major issues he addresses in his letter in regards to the 4 Poppy Trail development, and number 1 is extreme change of development plans, indicating the lack of any planning. Number 2 is the landslide issue. Number 3 is in regards to the easements, and number 4 are the variances involved. And so that letter's been emailed to the commissioners. I can elaborate further if you like, but you should have received a copy.
Okay. I think we can get into it when we get into discussing the project.
Okay.
So,
Can we make
thank
a
you very
motion?
much. All right.
Can we make a motion to accept the blue folder item?
Oh, okay. Let's make a motion.
I'll move to accept the blue folder item.
Second.
Great. Roll call.
Commissioner Cardenas?
Approved.
Commissioner Douglas?
Approve.
Vice Chair Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Chair Shelf?
Yes, thank you. Okay, are there any public comments on non-agenda items? Okay, hearing none, we will move on. Consent calendar 7A, approve affidavit of posting for the Planning Commission regular meeting of July 18th, 2023. 7B, continuation of remote Planning Commission meetings during the month of July 2023 pursuant to the requirements of AB 361. And 7C, approve the minutes for the May 16th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve items 7A and 7C and adopt resolution 7B. Second.
Okay, before we take roll call, I do have to make one clarification for item 7C in the minutes. There's a little bit of a typo on page 12 at the top right-hand corner. The address is incorrect. It says 17 Crest Road East, and that the field trip was actually at 42 Portuguese Bend Road. So just a quick clarification there, if the motion and the seconder are willing to accept that change.
Yeah, so I'll restate my motion to approve item 7A, approve item 7C with that change to the address, and adopt resolution number 202307.
I had caught that, but I forgot to bring it up.
Perfect.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Cardenas?
Approve?
Commissioner Douglas?
Approve.
Vice Chair Kirkpatrick? Chair Shell?
Yes. Yes, thank you. Okay, excluded consent calendar items, I'm seeing none. Item 9, public hearings on items continued from previous meeting. This is for zoning case number 22-51. This is for 4 Poppy Trail. John, you want to give us an overview?
Sure. This item is for 4 Poppy Trail, zoning case number 2251. It's in regards to a site plan review and a variance for construction of a new single-family residence. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The property at 4 Poppy Trail is located as shown on the plan. And you're seeing the plan okay, correct? My screen? Okay.
Yes.
4 Poppy Trail, it's located off of Portuguese Bend Road. A little bit of the background, the Planning Commission did have a hearing on this project on March 21st, 2023. At that time, we had a field trip. We were able to walk the site and then also have an evening meeting. To refresh your memory, the property is zoned RAS2. The net lot area is just over 6 acres. It's an irregularly shaped lot that slopes upward from Poppy Trail, and there's an existing 10-foot wide driveway that leads up to the stable pad. A portion of that driveway is located off-site. At that March 21st meeting, the Planning Commission, let me see, hope I don't get this the whole meeting. The Planning Commission directed the applicant to consider reducing the amount of grading. Proposed was about 42,000 cubic yards, including about 2,800 cubic yards of export. And the Planning Commission also asked the applicant to consider the development on the barn pad, which is up above at the rear portion of the site. That pad is 16,000 square feet, roughly, and there's an existing 3,330 square foot barn on that pad site. The project being proposed at that time, the owner is Mr. Andy Arvidsson. The engineer is Dan Bolton, architect Chris Gunderson. The application was for construction of a new 7,290 square foot single family residence that included a basement, attached garage, covered porches, and other improvements. The grading totaled 42,000 cubic yards on the site, as mentioned, and it included about 2,800 square feet of excavation. I'm gonna see if I can just move this out of the way. This shows the proposed project. Poppy Trail is located at the bottom right of this plan. The driveway is shown there in green, which is entirely on the property, and it curves upward up to the building pad, where the proposed residence will be located. The existing barn pad is located in the back corner there, the southern corner of the lot, and it's at the highest level. This plan shows the grading. The red shows generally the cut, and the blue shows the fill locations. Again, the total would be about 42,000 cubic yards with 2,800 cubic yards of export. In regards to a comparison of grading for other projects, there was a couple of projects that were recently built, including 11 Upper Blackwater Canyon Road, which is about 25,000 cubic yards, 5 Pine Tree Lane, 23,000 cubic yards. We have a new application for 23 Crest Road East that we received about less than a month ago. The total for that is roughly 19,000 cubic yards. The project at 8 Middle Ridge Lane South, the original application had 13,000 cubic yards, and 8 Crest Road East, which showed about 4,000 cubic yards for remodel of the house. The original project for 4 Poppy Trail included about 42,000 cubic yards of grading. So much more than other projects that have been constructed recently or proposed. This shows a section of the proposed building pad in the center of the property. The top part there, or the line you can see, is the existing grade, and the proposed house would almost entirely be located below that existing grade. It does include a basement level, which is shown down below. And the section at the bottom shows the proposed location for the ADU. And in that location, they're doing fill to be able to level out that pad and make it flat. And this is just a rendering of the proposed home. The applicant did take the Planning Commission's advice and went back and considered the barn pad location. They went before the fire department, and they were able to get the fire department's approval for access. Currently, there's a 10-foot wide driveway that has to be widened to 20 feet in order to meet fire department requirements. There's also an off-site driveway that's in the easement. That driveway will be located entirely within that easement. And there's also a new fire hydrant that would be required at the end of the driveway. Their geologist took a look at the site and feels that it is possible to develop a house on the barn pad location. However, there is remediation required off-site that is needed upslope on the neighboring properties. The applicant has reached out to the neighbors, and maybe I could have the applicant discuss the conversations. But we did receive correspondences from the neighbors that I'll get to soon. This shows a proposed barn location. The property lines for the property is shown there in the orange. Again, Poppy Trail is located on the bottom right of that. The existing driveway would have to be widened from 10 feet to 20 feet, but it is existing, and it is within an easement that goes off-site. The pad location is located there on the back part of the property.
Just to set up for level and.
Sorry, somebody's. Okay. That gray area there shows the area that would have to be graded in order to build a residence at the location. There's also a portion at the very top there, outlined in red, that shows the off-site remediation work that needs to be done on the neighboring properties. That would be on the Sioux property and the Constant property. The project includes a site plan review, and that's required for development of a new single-family residence and appurtenant structures, and for the grading and any retaining walls being proposed, maximum 5 feet with an average height not to exceed 2.5 feet. Variances are currently required for the proposed project for the swimming pool and spa being in the front yard, the retaining walls that exceed the average height of 2.5 feet, and any retaining walls located in the front yard. If the Planning Commission does consider the pad location, these variances would likely change. There would be a variance required for development within the rear yard and the side yard, and possibly other variances as well. In terms of public notices and comments, we published this in the Daily Breeze on July 8th, and we also mailed notices out to the property owners within 1,000 feet of the subject property. We received correspondences from David Long at 40 Chuckwagon Road, who emailed in regards to opposing the proposed project. That's located on page 25 of the staff report. Mr. Nikos Constant, also from 25 Georgia Road. He came to the front counter with inquiries. His letter is included as a blue folder item, as mentioned earlier. And he does have concerns with those 4 major issues, including the change of development plans, the landslide issue, easements, and variances. Mr. John Lacey of 7 Poppy Trail attended the March 21st Planning Commission meeting. He was a little bit late for the field trip, but he was able to attend the evening meeting. In terms of the environmental review, it's categorically exempt pursuant to section 15303 of CEQA guidelines. It's for construction of new residents. that concludes staff's presentation. Staff's available for any questions. Really what the applicant is looking for is some guidance in terms of, would you support the proposed project at the original location, or, they're looking to consider development at the pad location as advised by the Planning Commission at the March meeting. Staff is available.
John, can you go back to page 13 in the report?
This page?
Go one more back, maybe. Okay. This is interesting to me because it looks like there's a few requirements for this project as proposed that will involve support from neighbors, but I'm hoping that the applicant or the representatives can address both the remediation upslope on two different properties and then an easement going through a neighboring property for the driveway.
I'm sorry, are you getting this note that keeps telling me to check my speakers?
We're hearing you fine.
Okay, I get this window popping up that says I need to check my speakers are not working properly. So if you don't see it, then that's great.
So that's all I had. I think this is something I'd like to have addressed by the applicant or the representative.
I had a question on the area of remediation. What does actually that entail? What does that mean?
So the applicant is here. They can discuss it further, but my understanding is they had their geologists go out there. They took a look at the proposed location, at that barn pad location. There was an issue with, I guess, the stability shown in that area in red, and it would have to be remediated. And again, that's in results as for the geologist going on site, visiting the property, and evaluating the pad location and the surrounding area.
And hopefully Bolton is on the call tonight and they can address some of the concerns on this. So,
yeah.
But you guys are absolutely right. I mean, we need to look at the impact that this is putting on neighbors, and obviously they can't develop it without the approval of those neighbors. So I'm assuming that they're working with those neighbors to get those approval to make this location possible. So, John, thank you for the presentation. Very thorough, very good. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I also wanted
Commissioners,
to note,
any other questions?
I'm sorry, I wanted to note that Mr. Constant did mention that he is opposed to the project. He wanted to be clear on that.
Okay. Well, I'm assuming without his blessing, the project can't move forward the way it's designed, because a piece of the stability needs to go on his property. So, but I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. It would be very interesting to hear the applicant and Bolton talk about what they've been doing to try to resolve this. So, are there any other questions from the commissioners? Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, I'd like to open it up, and I'd like to have, and John, I think if you leave that page up, I think it would be very helpful, because I think that is the kind of the discussion we want to have. I see Dan is teed up and ready to go, so love to have you address it and kind of educate the commissioners as to what you guys have been working on. And quite frankly, I appreciate you guys trying to figure this out, because hopefully there's less grading that needs to happen on this site, and it's a better location for it. But I know that some headaches associated with it. So at this point in time, I'm going to open it up to the public, and I would love to hear some insight as to kind of what you guys have been doing and the thought process and how you're dealing with the off-site issues.
Sure. Dan Bolton Engineering on behalf of the applicant. We're at 25834 Narbonne Avenue in Lomita. And since our planning commission meeting, since the planning commission reviewed this, in March, which we very much appreciate and give the feedback. Our efforts have kind of been on a two-pronged path. The first was to obviously figure out whether or not we could get a pad up there that would be suitable for development just from a grading standpoint, and we think that we can. The second was to go to the fire department and try to get an access approved. And the plan that you see on the screen in front of you represents an access plan that's gone to the fire department, and the fire department has approved it for access and turnaround and sort of the site elements that the fire department reviews. I have not had the benefit of reviewing Mr. Constant's letter. We have reached out to him on the remediation issue, but in as much as there's a question about easements, the proposed access is proposed entirely within the easements that have already been granted over the Sakamoto property for access to the barn. So we don't need any additional easement to build the access that's on the screen in front of you. So with fire department approval in hand, we turned to the soils engineer because they had some concerns in the preliminary report that they prepared for the previous project about the barn site, but in as much as there wasn't any development approved, they could kind of look past it. In this case, we went back to them and said, okay, if we use that for the home, what are we up against? And they said, well, there's really two issues. One is the fact that the pad itself is uncertified fill, so all that would have to be removed and replaced, which we anticipated. They said the second issue is the fact that there's this red zone that you see on the plan in front of you, and they characterized that as old slope debris or slope wash. So in the past, the land above has eroded. That's kind of an old water course, and that water course debris is kind of accumulated in it over time, and the soils engineer feels like that represents the potential for mobilization in the future that would threaten the home. So, if we had a big rain, a lot of runoff went into that canyon, into that water course, it could move debris further downslope and impact the pad. They are not of the opinion. So we haven't gotten to the point yet where they've prepared formal recommendations. It's kind of been working on an ad hoc or, preliminary basis saying, what are we up against here, guys? The GMU feels like that there isn't really an ability to, what happens sometimes in cases like this is that we would build larger walls. So if we need a 5-foot wall at the back of the pad, we might propose an 8-foot wall, say, so a wall with 3 feet of freeboard, and that freeboard, the wall would be designed not just for the soil loads that are against the wall in normal times, but also for debris loads that it might see during a mudslide that might occur, or if that debris got mobilized. The soils engineer, at least preliminarily, felt like that wasn't a practical solution in this case, just given the volume of debris that might be mobilized. They said, we really recommend remediation on the neighboring properties. We asked them what that looked like. They said it might require some kind of superficial, removal of boulders that are at the surface, but mostly they characterized it as the need for like erosion control measures, planting, and maybe some remedial grading just to sort of flatten it out. But largely what they want is measures, erosion control type measures, planting and surface control that would prevent that material from being mobilized in the future. With that information, we reached out to Mr. Sue and Mr. Constant. We received feedback back from Mr. Sue that he was aware that there was drainage problems there, and he was enthusiastic or very amenable, it seemed like, from the email that we received, to doing remediation on that on the area on his property. We heard back from Mr. Constant that he was interested in meeting with us, asked for a couple dates. We gave him a couple dates. We haven't heard back from him further, and I haven't had a chance to hear or to review the letter that he sent. So that's kind of where we're at with it at this point. We have not had, with the feedback that we've gotten from the neighbors, we haven't had a chance to return to the soils engineer and see, okay, what would happen if we only did remediation on the Sioux property? Would that be viable? Would it be if we don't have both properties, is that the only way that it works? Obviously, the majority of the remediation area is on the Sioux property, but with the timing of the Planning Commission schedule, we wanted to bring it to you. When we initially were told by the soils engineer that we would have to do this offsite remediation, probably comes as no surprise that we were not encouraged and thought, well, we better get it on the Planning Commission agenda because it's not likely that we're going to get approval to enter and do this remediation work. We've gotten a better response actually than I expected. So here we are, kind of bringing the Planning Commission up to speed in terms of where we're at.
Dan, question for, are you done? Can I ask?
Yes, yep, absolutely, thank you.
So question for you, I know that you guys are trying to work with that pad where the barn is, which forces you back up against the property line. If you were to move that away from the back property line and grade it down a little bit to create the pad that you need, as you pull away from that area, does that solve the problem? Or is that a problem no matter where you put the pad and the house up there, because that's a piece of the hill that could come down on you?
That's a great question, and I don't know, I don't have a hard and fast answer for it. I think in as much as we cut the pad down, so moving the pad away from the property line, moving it essentially south, at least as the plan is in front of us, it would lower the pad and get it further away from the remediation area. It could be that would give us enough space that we could put up some debris walls or slough walls that would allow us to protect the pad without as much offsite remediation. In all likelihood, it would probably involve an imbalance between cut and fill. As we lower the pad, right now the pad's essentially balanced. We're kind of cutting on the uphill side, filling on the downhill side. So we'd be coming to you probably with an export request. I'm happy to go back to the soils engineer, with the results of this meeting, and kind of say, here's where we're at, guys. What do you think? Can we, if we moved it away, does that give us the ability to do it without or with limited offsite remediation, and kind of pursue it from there?
And Dan, understand, I'm not suggesting you do more grading. I'm trying to brainstorm with you to
Sure.
try to see if there's solutions. Obviously, it's better for everybody if you're, on the Sakamoto property, you've already got an easement there, so you're not going and asking for something that you don't have. Obviously, for the other two above, it's not something that you do have, and you're encroaching into their property, and obviously we're not encouraging that because we don't like it when development goes on to other people's property. I know you're negotiating with them and you can't do anything till you get them on board, but if there is a way that doesn't have a major impact that pulls away from that the pad could be created, it might be interesting to look at. And again, I don't know what that means because you're the expert here. I am not, and I'm not encouraging more grading, but I'm trying to figure out, I still think this is a better location than the lower pad that you guys had, where you've taken half a mountain out, where the hill right now is at the top of the house. So I'm trying to brainstorm and figure out how you can develop the site with as little grading as possible, knowing that you're going to have to do some grading. But it'd be interesting to know if you pulled that away a little bit, how does that impact that upper area, and does that change the dynamics of it, or what you would have to do to stabilize it if you pull away from that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Maybe it pulls you away from the constant property and only puts you on the Sioux property, who is more favorable to the development. Quite frankly, I think if it's an issue, they should be happy that you're up there trying to stabilize the side of the hill. I think that's probably good for everybody, but again, I'm not an expert and I don't know exactly what that means, but I do appreciate you guys taking the time and the effort to try to figure it out, to find a better pad site where you're not taking away half of a hillside to create a pad.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, Dan, adding on to Brad's comment, what does the remediation consist of on both the Sioux and the Constant property?
That's a good question, and we don't have formal recommendations yet from the soils engineer. In an email correspondence with them, I was kind of suggesting, hey guys, so I'm assuming this looks like removal and recompaction, and their response to that was, well, that would be great if we could do it, but mostly as slope wash, what we're trying to do is take measures that just prevent it from being mobilized in the future. And so they characterized it more like superficial reworking. So my understanding is the slope washes, they think they're estimating between 5 and 10 feet deep. And they've talked more about like superficial processing. So like getting in there, like the top couple feet, getting out any boulders and crud that's in the way, and then planting it in order to stabilize it so that it's less liable to be mobilized in the future.
So not dealing with, is the bedrock 10-ish feet down, do you think?
Yeah, I think what in that area, I think there's the slope wash that's on the surface. I think there's some older, firmer alluvials below that, and then below that is the bedrock.
And basically, part of this, we're all trying to learn here because we hear the concern, and based on what's in the news lately and everything,
absolutely.
I think, PV's getting a horrible rap. I can't believe that LA Times article with the last comment of the guy saying, I wouldn't live anywhere in the peninsula. It's just ridiculous. But, it adds to when things like this are brought up. And I think it's obviously something we all want to address. And to Brad's last comment, I think, yes, when these projects go on, what is left over after the development is a stabilized, more beneficial for the neighbors than it would be if you did nothing. And I think obviously that's your sales pitch to them is, hey, we're going to help stabilize, which improves everything around there. Obviously I think you guys are going down that road. So I just kind of added on. I think that would be very, to support the neighbors anyways, come up with an answer that you're actually improving it, not by approaching the development rather than just leaving it alone.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, Dan, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience, from the public, care to comment?
I'd like to speak to you before you leave.
Hey, you know what? I just have to do another, I'm in another, hold on. Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm at another planning commission meeting in another city, so I'll just be right back. So, this is Nico's Constant. I live at 25 George F. Road. As appreciative I am, I believe that was the last person speaking was the engineer. Am I correct?
Yes, that was Dan Bolton from Bolton Engineering.
Yeah, there were just a lot of I thinks rather than I knows, and I think you're right. We are in the media storm right now as far as how the peninsula is being portrayed. But I grew up here, and landslides and local surfers and the red onion come with the territory. And I would just say that I am incredibly alarmed about this second proposal. I'm really clear in my letter what I'm concerned with. I feel like this is such an extreme change from the first proposal that it seems like there's no plan at all going on. This is guessing. Number two, the landslide issue is huge, especially when it comes to my property. Number three, there's an easement issue. There's basically a spider web of easements that goes on at the where this is happening. And as far as other variances that are going to be necessary, that is a huge deal to negotiate. So anyhow, I just wanted to put my thoughts out there. Thanks a lot for accommodating me. Looking forward to future challenges presented here. Thanks very much.
Well, and Nicholas, just to be clear, you know, we are all trying to have dialogue and try to figure this out. And, you know, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. But, you know, we're trying to look at the data to determine what makes sense and what doesn't. So, you know, we're not just pushing something through. This is a big project, and we are trying to figure it out. And, you know, this may be the location for it. It may not be the location for it. And there's more data that needs to be presented to determine whether it is or whether it is not. So we continue to look forward to your input. And you know, we're not comfortable where we are right now, and that's why we're having ongoing discussions with this.
If
Could I follow up with another comment?
Sure.
You know, I noticed, sorry, I missed most of the presentation, but I did see the beginning where basically, you know, the cubic feet of earth being moved was discussed in comparison to other projects. And I just want to point out that there's never been a project on this, you know, I believe it's 13 acres. There's just been this barn. It is really untouched. These other projects had properties involved already. We don't really know what's going to happen once you start digging. And that really concerns me. I mean, my house is literally, you know, what I wanted when I moved back to PV was I wanted a Hollywood house on a cliff with a crazy view, and that's what I have. But, you know, right now I just feel like that's in danger. And so I just really want to thank you for letting me share my concerns, but I do feel like some of the comparisons going on aren't exactly apples and apples. Thank you.
If I could ask a quick question, Nicholas, if you're still there. In terms of,
I'm here.
In terms of easements, I understand that there's some encroachment as it pertains to driveway going across the RHCA easement and then back again. It sounded like the representative from the project owner said that they do have the easements in place for the widened driveway. Were there other easements that you were concerned about?
Oh, definitely. So, you know, I don't know if, sorry, I don't have my notes in front of me right now, but if you'll notice that basically where the barn stands, basically it's like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 properties are all meet at sort of like in like a triangle shape. Mm-hmm. Well, each of those property lines is an RHCA easement. Uh-huh. And so, you know, if you're going to be developing that, you know, right now it's wild country down there. So, but that wild country is technically, you know, safety easements to, for access to trails, for access for fire breaks, etc. And so my point in my letter, and which I'll make right now, is that easements are really complicated. And so because the shape of those easements down there is sort of complicated in a star shape, I think that really needs to be vetted properly before you can even start saying, hey, here's what we're asking for with a variance. Here's what our lot line is, or here's what our setback variance is going to be, or even as concerns the slide itself. This is a slide that goes across 3 different properties. It's not like and luckily it's not that big of a slide, but it's also not self-contained amongst property owners. It's not like it's all on one property or, even between 2 people. This is 3 different, to me, I feel like any negotiation amongst more than 2 people, it gets incredibly complicated. You add in easements, you add in the safety issues that I'm talking about. It's just, it's concerning.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else from the public like to speak? Okay. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing portion and we will have a discussion amongst the commissioners. So I believe that all we're basically looking at doing right now is extending this to the next meeting, so the applicant can do some more due diligence and determine what is feasible and what is not feasible.
I would add to some of the direction that the applicant was given. Subtle things like taking the pool, putting it in the backyard, bringing the house further out, et cetera. Things that Bolton Engineering might be able to do, the shape, the orientation of the house, et cetera, to again move that to a further. I think it's actually northerly position on the pad. Just again, look through different options of moving out of the way, getting it out of the setback, getting away from the hillside where it sounds like there's potential geological dangers, et cetera, and get creative without disturbing, more dirt.
I would suggest also in the direction standpoint, particularly for Dan Bolton, is to address the comment that Commissioner Cardenas and Mr. Constant had about the easements, and just review what Dan said about that they've got current easement, they're okay. I don't believe they're asking for any other easements, or even, I can't remember, but maybe this is a question for John, if they're asking for an encroachment on an easement. Other than the front yard setback, I don't believe they're encroaching on the easements to those 4 or 5 properties in the rear. Is that correct, John?
No, they're not encroaching on those. They're entirely on their property. There is RHCA has easements all over the place, including about 10 feet along property lines for each property, and that sort of, I guess, varies depending on what property you want. But the project will be reviewed by RHCA, so RHCA will look at that at a future time.
My reading of the map is that their driveway crosses the RHCA easement actually 3 times, I guess, if you go down to the roadway entrance. But I don't see just on the map here any structure encroachment easements. But yeah, that'd be good to verify.
It would also be interesting to know, it's a long driveway. Of the grading that you guys are doing, what percentage of that is the driveway and what is actually the pad? So that would be nice to break those out, just so we know that. And some of that's driving just a 20-foot driveway because of the fire department regulations. So, okay. Any other feedback from commissioners? Okay, sounds great. So, Ryan, do we just take a vote to, or just switch this to next meeting?
Well, yeah, I think that's ultimately a decision for the commission. If you want to do one meeting, or if you think more than one meeting is sufficient. I don't know, John, if you have a suggestion for the commission or recommendation, but yeah, we'll want to continue the hearing to a date certain.
Yeah, the next meeting is going to be.
Do we want to go back out there, Brad?
If that is the commissioner's wishes, I'm happy to go back out and take another look at it. But, I don't know that we're in a position to do that as of yet. I think they've got to get some more answers before we go out and try to look at what they're proposing, because I don't know that they figured it out yet. I mean, I think they're still working through different options on how to try to make it work. So,
agreed. It totally depends on their discussions with their neighbor. So
yeah. But I mean, I think the other thing is try as best you can to reduce the grading. I mean, everybody's concerned in the city about grading. Your timing is horrible with some houses sliding into the canyon. But, you know, the important thing is anything that you guys do is going to go through the county. The engineers, the county engineers are going to review and look at all of it, and it'll be a better slope after they look at it. So that's the good news, and I think it's important that everybody understands that. But obviously, anything you can do to reduce the grading and you know, try to work with the neighbors to get them comfortable with what you're building is going to go a long way. So at this point in time, you know, Dan, I'm assuming that you guys would like to push this to the next meeting and come back and have some further discussions on additional due diligence and information that you've prepared.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think, you know, the best case scenario is that we get a solution to this offsite stability issue, and then the next meeting or the next presentation that we have for you might include, you know, a set of house plans and a field trip to view a silhouette up on that upper pad. That's the best case scenario to my mind.
Once we know where it fits and what you can do, I think that's a great suggestion. It'd be great once we try to fine tune this to figure out where it goes, you know, if we can fit it in, and then getting the neighbors to come down and walk the site with us and get comfortable with it, I think is great. So,
yeah.
And I do appreciate you guys continuing to try to investigate what the best solution is to try to figure out how to put a house on the site. So thank you for that. So Ryan, do we need to take a vote amongst the commissioners as to that is the wish to?
Yeah, you'd want to do, if you go next month, that'd be, you know, motion to continue this item to the August 15th meeting. If you go September, that'd be on the 19th. So whatever date you guys want to do, that'd be the motion.
So I guess, Dan, the question to you is, do you want to put it on the next month's meeting to keep it moving? Or do you guys? Okay.
I think,
okay,
yeah,
so let's push it till the August meeting. What's the date?
15th, right, John?
August
That's correct.
15th. Okay. So I make that motion. Does somebody want to second it?
I'll second.
Okay, great. John, you want to do a roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Cardenas?
Approved.
Commissioner Douglas?
Approve.
Vice Chair Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Chair Shelf?
Yes.
Motion
Thank
passes.
you. Okay, so moving on, I see no new public hearings. I see no old business, no new business. Do we have any scheduled field trips, John?
Not at this point.
Okay, sounds great. So the next item is items from staff.
Thank you. And this is really just more of an informational items from staff. First of all, you've all heard that Elaine has left the city of Rolling Hills. We now have an interim city manager, Mr. David Reddy. He's actually sitting to my right over here, so I don't know if you want to, should I just?
Good evening, everyone.
So he's been here the
David,
whole time.
welcome. You've got some big shoes to fill.
Right.
Elaine was great.
Indeed.
The other item on there, just to discuss, you know, some of the staffing. We do have some positions to fill. I don't know if you met Katie Watts. She was our admin clerk helping out. Before her was Melissa Flores. So you probably met Melissa because she was helping out with me on planning commission meetings, and she was at a couple of field trips. Katie basically took her place. She was part-time over here under planning and community services. She's now taken a full-time position at the city as well, but she's now basically taking over Connie's position. So she is our administrative assistant, full-time. In regards to our COG membership, we had the city council actually approved that membership, so we're back in the COG. So the housing workshops and other events that you've been able to be invited to, we can continue doing that. In terms of upcoming projects, Ryan and I are working on the wireless communications facility along with some of the other attorneys at BBK. That should be coming to you at the next meeting in August. We also have a couple of continued items that you should be seeing, including the one that you just heard at 4 Poppy Trail. There's also the house being proposed over at 42 Portuguese Bend Road that the commission visited a couple of months ago. And there's also the tennis court over at 12 Upper Blackwater Canyon that we expect to come back at some point. There's a couple of new items, one for a time extension for 79 Eastfield Drive, 2 projects at 19 and 20 Portuguese Bend Road, and we also received a lot line adjustment for 10 Pine Tree Lane. And so those are just items that would be coming before the Planning Commission at some point. That concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you, John. Are there any items from the Planning Commission? Okay, so hearing none, I am adjourning this meeting till the next meeting will be August 15th, 2023 at 6:30 via teleconference. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Goodbye.